Washington is no stranger to political friction, but this week, the tension inside the Justice Department reached a boiling point. A firestorm erupted behind closed doors when FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino reportedly clashed with Attorney General Pam Bondi over the Trump administration's handling of the infamous Jeffrey Epstein investigation. The dispute has shaken the very core of the administration's law enforcement leadership, casting doubt over internal transparency, the fate of what many believe to be Epstein's elusive client list, and the unity of Trump's second term. Tima Bongino, a former Secret Service agent turned right-wing commentator, who was appointed deputy director less than 4 months ago, is said to be deeply frustrated over the direction and public messaging around the Epstein case. According to a source familiar with the matter, Bongino took a personal day on Friday and is now actively weighing resignation. "I don't think Dan comes back if Pam stays," the insider confided, highlighting a growing rift between two of the administration's most visible law and order figures. The tipping point came earlier this week, during a tense internal meeting. Following the Justice Department's announcement that its latest Epstein review had found no credible evidence of a client list, no new smoking gun surrounding the disgraced financier's death, and no incriminating material on uncharged individuals. The revelation blindsided many who had long believed Epstein held leverage over the powerful elite, and among those pushing for more transparency was Dan Bongino. Sources inside the administration say Bongino's frustration is not limited to Bondi, but also aimed at what he sees as a broader reluctance by the White House to fully release information tied to Epstein's sprawling network. An official familiar with the situation hinted that FBI Director Kash Patel might also consider stepping down in solidarity with Bongino. Kash and Dan have always been aligned, the source said. They've both been vocal about transparency. And in a world where that's being stifled, it wouldn't be shocking to see them take a stand together. The stakes are enormous. The Epstein case has captivated the American public for years, combining celebrity, conspiracy, and unimaginable crimes in one sinister saga. The financier's shocking 2019 death inside New York's Metropolitan Correctional Center, officially ruled a suicide, was followed by years of speculation and skepticism. Critics across the political spectrum have demanded accountability. Suspecting foul play, political cover-ups, or even intelligence involvement, the Justice Department's internal memo, quietly released earlier this week, appeared to dash those hopes. It concluded that Epstein had indeed died by suicide, that there was no concrete evidence of a secret client list, and that the FBI had found no material to justify charges against any additional third parties. The 2-page summary stated. Plainly, there was also no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. It added, "We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties." But for many, including Bongino, the explanation wasn't enough. The matter escalated during a cabinet-level meeting on Tuesday when Bondi attempted to clarify her previous statements. Months earlier, she had sparked speculation after telling Fox News that a stack of documents related to Epstein was sitting on my desk to be reviewed. The implication was clear, that the infamous client list was real and potentially explosive. Now, Bondi was backtracking, claiming her comments had been misunderstood and that the materials in question were part of a broader file that included unrelated historical records, such as the JFK and Martin Luther King Jr. files. In February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the Epstein file along with the JFK and MLK files as well. She said during the cabinet meeting, but for Bongino, and many others, the retraction rang hollow. Adding fuel to the fire was the DOJ's botched attempt at a transparency campaign earlier this year, when it invited a handful of right-wing influencers to the White House and handed them binders titled, The Epstein Files, Phase 1. The spectacle was widely ridiculed after the contents failed to reveal any new details. Instead, repackaging already public flight logs and contact lists, among the names that had long been tied to Epstein, through photographs, travel records, or unconfirmed reports, were Microsoft founder Bill Gates, former President Bill Clinton, and Prince Andrew of the British royal family. Even Donald Trump's name had surfaced due to past social connections, including parties in the 1990s. However, Trump has publicly maintained that he cut ties with Epstein in 2007, reportedly banning him from Mar-a-Lago after an incident involving a club member's teenage daughter. Trump, during his 2024 campaign, promised to release all Epstein-related files if re-elected, stating he was not involved and had never been to the island, referring to Epstein's private estate in the Virgin Islands, Little St. James. where many of the crimes allegedly took place. Bondi's department had also raised eyebrows by previously suggesting that the FBI's New York field office was in possession of thousands of pages of documents related to the investigation and indictment of Epstein. Yet, the latest memo released by the DOJ paints a far less dramatic picture. Critics, including Bongino, believe that somewhere along the line, the public is being misled either about what was found or what's being kept hidden. Among the more bizarre twists in the saga was the issue of surveillance footage. The DOJ claimed to have 10 hours of video showing Epstein alone in his cell prior to his death, meant to dispel any theory of foul play. However, 1 minute of footage was missing. Bondi attributed this to outdated prison recording equipment, asserting, "Every night should have the same minute missing." She said her department was working to release the footage to prove this, but to conspiracy theorists, and even some insiders, this explanation only deepened suspicion. Long before joining the Trump administration, Bongino had expressed his own doubts about the Epstein case. On his podcast, he once described receiving a tip from an unimpeachable source who claimed to have flown on Epstein's private jet, the so-called Lolita Express, with former President Clinton. According to Bongino, the source said the women on board appeared underage, and the experience left him disturbed. "Let's just leave it at that," Bongino had said ominously at the time. The Epstein story hasn't ended. In another episode, he described Epstein's black book as definitely damning and accused Washington insiders of not telling you the truth. The implication was that the rot went far deeper than the public had seen, and that a real reckoning was being stymied from the top. Now, as that reckoning appears further out of reach than ever, Bongino finds himself at a crossroads. Sources say he's disillusioned not just by the conclusions of the investigation, but by the handling of it, the perceived lack of accountability, the failure to keep promises of transparency, and the interagency dysfunction that now threatens to cost the administration one of its most loyal defenders. Meanwhile, the White House is attempting to project stability. In a statement to the Post, White House Principal Deputy Press Secretary Harrison Fields said, "President Trump has assembled a highly qualified and experienced law and order team dedicated to protecting Americans, holding criminals accountable, and delivering justice to victims. This work is being carried out seamlessly and with unity. Any attempt to sow division within this team is baseless and distracts from the real progress being made in restoring public safety and pursuing justice for all." But behind the scenes, unity is cracking. And the American people, many of whom still believe there are untold truths buried within the Epstein scandal, are watching closely. If Dan Bongino resigns, it will not be a quiet exit. It will be an unmistakable signal that not everyone within the Trump administration is content with the status quo. That even at the highest levels of power, the search for truth in the Epstein case is still plagued by resistance, misdirection, and the lingering sense that somewhere in the shadows, justice remains just out of reach. And if Kash Patel follows suit, it could mark the beginning of a broader upheaval within the DOJ, one that forces a new round of questions not only about Epstein's crimes but about the integrity of the institutions charged with investigating them. For now, the Epstein file is officially closed. But the political and moral consequences of how it was handled are far from over.